When I was in high school, I had a very low-end laptop that couldn't run any of the modern games at the time. So as you can imagine, my experience with modern games growing up was very limited. All I could really do was observe from afar while I silently enjoyed my Pokemon ROM hacks and fan-translated Super Famicom RPGs. God, and it still somehow took me till 2017 to discover Shin Megami Tensei. But then I discovered through some Let's Play channels about RPG Maker games. Hell, some of them weren't really RPGs, some of them were just puzzle, horror, adventure games on an RPG engine. And wouldn't you have it, my craptop could run these games perfectly fine, so I delved into what was essentially a whole subgenre of games, for lack of a better term. Near the end of my senior year, I finally received the machine that I'm currently using. My interest in RPG Maker games kind of wore off as I became interested in other games. Like, the newest RPG Maker game I played before this video was Lisa, and that came out in like 2014 or some shit. Fast forward about 5 years. I came across this familiar looking game called Omori. I remember seeing the very first trailer for this game while it was still in Kickstarter phase and thought, hey, this looks interesting. And I just sort of forgot about it until it came out on Christmas of 2020. This game was in development for 6 years, and I can't really say that I was one of those people who waited through all those years, considering how I didn't even think about it over that time frame. So in terms of was the game worth the wait, I can't really give an opinion on that. The only games that I've ever really waited for are Kingdom Hearts 3 and Persona 5 Royal. Instead, I'll treat this game as if it just came out of nowhere and took me by surprise. So in this game, you play as a monochrome boy named Omori, who lives in white space, which is somewhere. And every day he comes out of his little pocket dimension to play with his friends, Aubrey, Kel, and Hiro. The world outside of his bubble is actually a colorful, vibrant, and fun world filled with all sorts of strange critters and characters. This includes the main character's sister, Mari, and Basil. It honestly kinda reminds me of watching Adventure Time back in the day. Your friend Basil loves two things, taking pictures of his cherished friends, and flowers. So you go over to his house and have a look at both of those things. Everything is all wholesome, and then Basil finds a photo of... This is the story of a boy named Sunny. Upon inspecting his phone messages, you can infer that he is moving soon, and the mother has left the house and all the remaining luggage to him. Being home alone isn't as great as you would think when you start having hallucinations at night. Wow. Was the stairway always this long? In this 2-story house? So now it's up to you as the player to decide how Sunny spends his last few days in his hometown before he leaves everything behind. Each night you go back to sleep and return to your dream world. That is essentially the format for this game's story. So upon returning to sleep after your first illusion, you're informed by your friends that Basil has disappeared and that everything after coming over to his house is a blank to them. So, it's at this point where you truly get to begin exploring the world. The Dream World segments consist of you unlocking a new area that was previously blocked off by some obstacle relating to the main character's fears. For example, in order to reach Otherworld, you need to climb a huge-ass ladder into space. Omori, being afraid of heights, isn't going to be able to climb that ladder. In the real world, Sunny has to overcome his fear of heights by conquering the stairs, which then allows his dream world counterpart to progress once returning back to sleep. Each excursion in the dream world has Omori and friends discovering and exploring each new area in search for Basil. This usually leads to them getting sidetracked in some subplot shenanigans. After they finish dealing with said diversion, they get interrupted by some mysterious anomalies that lead to some psychological spooky sequence, revealing backstory details that will become important later. Then Sunny wakes up and the present story progresses. It becomes apparent very quickly that in the real world, Mari has been long dead, and that you haven't seen your old friends in years. You are given the choice to either go outside and accept your friends' invitations to spend your last days together, or ignore them and essentially remain a shut-in. I personally have not done the shut-in route, so each day you get more details on how your friends have been holding up since Mari's death while slowly mending your relationships with them. And every night you return to the dream world and recall more details about the death. What I like about this story structure is that, straight from the beginning, you already have a general sense of what's going on. Mari's dead and everyone's grown distant from each other. It really shows how death can affect people in different ways, and maybe even change them, in a light that at least feels realistic to me. The mystery is finding out the one thing that nobody else knows about Mari's death, and having all the hints trickle down on you each night. And right as it seems like everything is starting to look up, the game hits you with the big old truth bomb, which is something you ought to find out for yourself if you haven't figured it out already. There's so much about the plot that I could go into detail about, but here's the thing, the dream world segments drag out for a long time, and each visit to the dream world basically has its own little subplot, involving a bunch of side characters that are ultimately just figments of the imagination. Like, the dream world could be its own standalone RPG if it wanted to be. So you really are better off just playing the game at this point instead of listening to a 15-hour breakdown trying to explain both halves of the game in a way that doesn't feel scattered. That's not to say that either side of this game isn't fun, because they certainly are fun. It just sort of messes with the pacing of the story. Oh yeah, did I mention this is like a legit RPG? Now, when I say this game is an RPG, this isn't just a story with basic RPG mechanics thrown in there just for the hell of it like a lot of other RPG Maker games do. This game goes hard, having its own set of unique rules and mechanics that make it stand out. Firstly, and most importantly, you as well as every enemy in the game have emotions. Emotions each have their own perks and drawbacks. By default, everyone is usually in a neutral state at the start of a battle. Sadness gives you more defense but lowers your attack. While sad, you also take damage to your mana, or juice as it's called in this game, in addition to your health, called heart in this game, whenever you're attacked. Happiness increases your crit rate considerably while lowering your accuracy. Anger increases your damage output as well as the damage you take. Emotions also have a rock, paper, scissors thing going on. Anger beats sadness, sadness beats joy, and joy beats anger. Many skills in the game can inflict emotions on your side or the opposing side, and many attacks have additional effects based on either the user's emotion or the enemy's emotional state. Actual attack elements don't really exist in this game, so emotions act as both a status effect and also your sort of element system. It's an interesting twist on the typical RPG formula. Something else worth noting is that each character is limited to equipping 4 skills out of their entire move pool. I actually like this because it forces the player to build your party in a way that fits your preferred playstyle. You could build your entire party around one emotion, or you could build each character around their own emotion. I built my party around DPS. Lots of multi-hit attacks from everyone except Hero on healing and item support, while also leaving in skills for exploiting those different moods. Each mood also has an ascended level, making their effects more potent. There's also one more emotion, afraid. When a character is afraid, they cannot use any of their skills. There are only a few instances of this happening in the dream world, and in the psychological segments in the real world, it's scripted, and the game will give Sunny some sort of means to overcome his fear. There's also your team energy. When taking damage, your party's energy bar goes up by 1 for each hit. You can perform a normal co-op attack between 2 characters for 3 energy, and with a maximum of 10 energy, you can release their energy, which is essentially a team blast. Wow, I was not expecting to talk about Sonic Heroes while making this video, but lo and behold. Depending on the character currently acting and the person you select them to co-op with, you can get a number of different results. Most are just follow-up attacks, but you can also inflict a certain mood on someone, or you can get a heal-in for free. A lot of these follow-up attacks are nice for speeding up normal encounters, and they're very charming as they express each character's personality. You start every battle with enough energy for at least one follow-up attack, so there's really no reason not to do it. It should be noted though that Omori can't co-op on his attack, and he is also the only one who can declare an all-out attack. There, I made a Persona reference, are you happy now? Now, I don't actually think it's possible to lose, per se. Whenever Omori gets hit by something that should have killed him, he survives with 1 HP, and the game gives you the will not succumb dialogue. In the real-world segments, you aren't required to win any of the fights, and the plot moves along the same regardless. So any sort of challenge kinda gets thrown out the window. Now, I've never actually gotten hit again after Omori is half dead, so I don't actually know if it's possible to get a game over that's not scripted. Regardless, it's still a fun system. Now, there's obviously more to this game than just the turn-based combat. This game is also part exploration and puzzle solving. To prevent this from being repetitive and the same as other RPG Maker games, the tag mechanic was added. Certain obstacles and objects can be interacted with by a specific character. Omori can cut branches, traffic cones, and webs. Aubrey can smash barrels and other things. Kel can throw balls at things from a distance. Hiro can sweet-talk certain NPCs and tell cringy jokes. This can be required for mandatory puzzle solving or for unlocking secrets while exploring. The follow-up mechanic is absent in the real-world battles, and you can't inflict emotions as they are either unpresent or scripted. The tag mechanic is only available in the optional and only real-world dungeon, although it is revealed to just be part of Sunny's imagination. The battle roles for each character between the real and dream world are essentially the same. Aubrey is your heavy hitter, Kel is your support, and Hiro is your healer. The only difference being Sunny is more frail, and damn is he near useless without his knife. While the gameplay mechanics are pretty simple to follow and aren't anything out of this world, it only helps the game and its characters by adding expressiveness. Speaking of expressiveness, it's time to talk about one of the game's greatest strengths. In the dream world, the art style is definitely akin to what you'd expect from a kid's imagination. This is only enforced by how all the characters have very emphasized pencil strokes that look extra pencil-y. The game even goes out of its way to sort of animate them even as they are just still portraits. Every enemy and character has a different portrait for every mood and for taking damage as well. The confetti on each character's portrait at the end of every battle is just so charming. The dream world itself is colorful in the best way. It's somehow colorful while being easy on the eyes. I can't really explain it. I also love how so many of the settings are derived from just simple concepts. Firefly Forest is just a forest centered around spiders and attracting them with candles. Deep Well is just a highway underwater. Orange Oasis is a desert of brown sugar and pastries. There's even one really tiny, literal small room world where the rain is controlled by a faucet. Now, after hearing that, you might think the real world must be super boring. That's actually not true. I've been told that this game gives people Earthbound vibes, and I certainly wouldn't doubt that this game took more than a little inspiration from it. Except I have yet to actually play Earthbound despite playing several games inspired by it at this point. I should really get on that, huh? Unlike the large and vast dream world, Faraway Town is much simpler. It gives a very homey and intimate feeling you'd expect Sunny to feel about his own hometown, only enforced by how everyone in town seems to at least know of each other. But honestly, what really carries the art style are the horror hallucinations. These pseudo three-dimensional horrific figments of Sunny's mind, and stuff like the realistic hands, and I'm not talking like haha hyper-realistic creepypasta type shit. The internal battles that Sunny has in his head while these hallucinations take place also help push the atmosphere. I wouldn't really say it scared me, but it definitely made me feel unsettled and discomforted. This game's soundtrack is great in that there's a lot of variety. The music can range from chill to lighthearted to intense to just straight up ambience or atmosphere. Most game soundtracks I hear tend to lean more towards a specific style or genre of music, but the variety works here since the game jumps between the dream world, the real world, and hallucinations. I also love how every area in the dream world has its own battle theme, which just makes each area feel even more unique and special. Every boss in both the real world and dream world also have their own theme. So if there were one word to describe this game, the one word that stuck in my head from the moment I saw the first trailer, then forgot about it, and then came straight back to me after I played it, that word would have to be expressive. The gameplay, the world, the art style are all pretty much carried by their expressiveness. It's a game where the gameplay is centered around emotions, so I guess that's kind of a given. Sure, I could have made an hour-long video talking about the heart-touching story of a group of friends fixing their relationship and recovering from the death of their big sister figure. I could have gone into how much Sunny struggled to overcome his fears, recalling the best days of his life, and moving forward resonated with me. I could go over the billion blocked words you can't name Sunny, but people already know about that stuff. Okay, maybe just the first thing. But what I appreciate just as much, if not even more, about this game is its expressiveness. This one factor carries so much weight to this game. I think the artistic passion that was poured into this game is the most admirable thing about it. Sure, there might be more important things at hand, like depression, or how these characters should probably seek therapy, but all of that means so much more, because of how it's conveyed. Through the lens of a very colorful, lively world and a turn-based RPG. Just please stop calling this the new Earthbound.